We all know that Jerusalem was the center of the ancient world, the home of the sacred temple, especially during the great festivals. But imagine the sheer, unbelievable scale. Millions of people traveling hundreds of miles, from the distant coasts of Greece to the deep deserts of Babylon, all pouring into one single city at the same moment. The roads, the sounds, the smells. It was overwhelming holiness and chaos combined. In today's video, we'll talk about the sensory experience of a pilgrim as he makes the final steps toward the temple during the chaos and glory of Passover. So let's not waste any time and let's begin. The final leg of the pilgrimage is often the most profound, not because of what you see, but because of how utterly your body submits to the effort. For weeks, the road has been a silent companion, sometimes paved, often not, a path traced by faith across the vastness of the ancient world. Now, the path is gone, absorbed by the sheer volume of humanity marching toward a single gleaming point on the horizon. The last few miles are less like walking and more like flowing, caught in a slow, irresistible river of fellow travelers, all heading toward Jerusalem. This river is deep, wide, and moving at the pace of the most exhausted member, creating a shared, hypnotic rhythm that is deeply conducive to rest. Your senses, long dulled by the monotony of the open road, now sharpen, recognizing the imminent end of the journey. Close your eyes for a moment and focus on the immediate, tangible reality of the pilgrim road beneath your feet. It is not mud or stone here, but a thick, fine, reddish-brown dust, the kind that rises with every single step and hangs suspended in the warm afternoon air. This dust coats everything: your rough woolen tunic, the leather straps of your sandals, and the exposed skin of your legs. It is the color of baked clay and the texture of flour, and it settles into the lines on your palms, serving as a physical ledger of the journey's long miles. Feel it as it puffs up between your toes with each slow, shuffling pace. You might even notice the slight irritation in your nostrils, a constant reminder of the sun-baked earth you have traveled over. This omnipresent dust carries the scent of the entire world with it. Sun-warmed rock, dry goat wool, the simple, clean smell of olive oil, and the faint, sweet decay of roadside herbs crushed underfoot. Yet, what dominates is the complex, living smell of the crowd itself. Simple soap, sweat, the pungent odor of animal hides, and the occasional burst of sour wine or dried figs from an open pouch. This blend of scents, far from being offensive, becomes the comforting aroma of communal purpose. Above the shuffling and the scents, the air is filled with a low, constant, murmuring sound, a linguistic ocean unique to this approach. It is not shouting or arguing, but the steady, low drone of quiet conversation, of greetings exchanged, and of murmured prayers. Listen closely, and you can pick out the rich, nasal tones of Aramaic, the crisp, clipped commands of Greek from a passing merchant, and the deep, resonant rhythm of Hebrew chanted softly by a Galilean family. These languages, normally separated by deserts and empires, blend here into a single, unified hum, 1,000 private thoughts converging on one collective hope. You are surrounded by the sheer volume of people, farmers whose hands are hardened by the plow, merchants with anxious eyes guarding their wares, and entire families who have saved for years for this single sacred trip. Look at the faces around you, illuminated by the low angle of the setting sun. There is a quiet excitement on every face, a combination of exhaustion and fervent anticipation. They come from Babylon and Alexandria, from the shores of the Aegean and the distant hills of Galilee, all sharing this extraordinary binding purpose: to stand in the temple of their God during the holiest festival. You are a small, anonymous part of a massive historical movement. The exhaustion in your legs is real, a deep, heavy ache that settles into your bones. Yet it is a good pain, a proof of sacrifice. You lean on the staff you have carried for hundreds of miles, and the wooden grip feels worn smooth, a perfect extension of your tired arm. You pass a small, rocky hill, and the path curves one last time. And then it happens. The landscape ahead, which has been open and undulating, suddenly gives way to a sight of colossal scale. There, finally, dominating the entire world before you, stand the massive, unyielding walls of Jerusalem. They are not merely fences, they are fortifications of perfectly hewn stone, rising sheer and intimidating from the surrounding terrain. Even from this distance, you can appreciate the thickness and height, a testament to the city's strength and strategic importance. The walls are an impressive, looming sight, casting long, stark shadows across the crowded plain. Their color is a pale, slightly pinkish white, a stone that seems to capture and amplify the fading light of the day. They fill your entire view, a glorious, almost overwhelming promise of the spiritual center you have sought. The sight brings a final, quiet rush of adrenaline, erasing the last vestiges of road weariness. The journey ends not with a gentle fade, but with the sudden, powerful emergence of a massive stone presence. You are here. The city waits. Now, the next challenge is to negotiate your passage through the formidable stone barriers and join the millions already gathered within the ancient gates. The towering, luminous vision of Jerusalem's walls is now close enough to dominate the sky, and the river of pilgrims narrows into a formidable stream, pushing toward the nearest point of entry. You are no longer on a quiet, shared path. You are in a massive, chaotic staging area, a bottleneck where the gentle silence of the countryside ends and the city's complex, organized commotion begins. The most immediate impression is the stone itself. These aren't the patched, crumbling ramparts of a common town. These are monumental blocks of white gold limestone, smoothly hewn, fitted together with such ancient, painstaking precision that you couldn't slip a knife blade between them. The walls rise so dizzyingly high, they seem to hold the entire sun-baked sky back, an overwhelming testament to human labor and Herodian power. The gate ahead, likely one of the main southern entrances, is an intimidating architectural choke point, a funnel of thick, dark oak and heavy bolted iron secured within the formidable stone shell. As you approach, the noise level rises dramatically, a complex, urgent sound unlike the previous gentle murmur. This is the sound of commerce, customs, and control, a turbulent mixture of human and animal demands. Hear the low, almost mournful lowing of thousands of cattle and the nervous, high-pitched bleating of sheep and goats. their cries mingling with the sharp, quick shouts of drovers and animal handlers. These are the sacrificial animals, arriving in their own great, dusty waves, their presence adding a layer of anxious, vital energy to the crowd. You can distinctly smell them now, too. The dry, sweet scent of wool and hide, the sharp, clean tang of their droppings, which city workers attempt, often in vain, to clear away with rakes and buckets of water, scattering lime to mask the stronger odors. At the very mouth of the gate, separating the free world from the governed city, stand the Roman soldiers. They are an island of cold, silent, metallic indifference in a sea of spiritual fervor. Their bronze helmets gleam dully in the strong light, their leather and iron armor creating a stark, unsettling contrast with the simple, undyed wool and dusty sandals of the pilgrims. They carry themselves with a practiced, bored weariness, their eyes scanning the crowd with a professional detachment that is both chilling and predictable. They are not here for the Passover celebration. They are here for the tax, for the census count, and for the quiet maintenance of the fragile imperial peace. Their presence is a dull, heavy reminder that even here, in the city considered the center of the Jewish world, Caesar's ultimate authority is absolute and unquestioned. You feel the slow, inexorable pressure of the crowd now, a gentle but relentless shove forward, a shared, unavoidable momentum that carries you along. You have to move with the mass, your own pace dictated by the backs and shoulders of the bodies immediately around you. The air in this bottleneck is hotter, denser, and carries the metallic scent of sweat, and faintly, the underlying nervousness of people worried about their documents or their taxes. This physical pressure acts like a slow-moving, universal hug, both intimate in its closeness and slightly alarming in its lack of personal control, binding you to every stranger as you all move toward the narrow passage. There is a brief, necessary pause at a small, makeshift table near the inner arch. This is where the temple tax, a half shekel for the upkeep of the holy structure, and various customs fees are collected. The money changers, not the pious ones who operate within the temple itself, but the civil authorities, sit with piles of clinking bronze and silver coins, their hands moving with lightning speed and practiced authority. They are loud, calling out exchange rates in Aramaic and Greek. The constant rhythmic sound of coins being weighed on small scales, inspected for purity, and counted into tall stacks, a ceaseless, hypnotic jangling accompaniment to the lowing of the animals. You reach into your simple purse, pull out the necessary amount of local currency, and complete the small, bureaucratic transaction that permits your sacred journey to continue past the Roman gaze. As you pass under the thick stone arch of the gatehouse, the sound changes again. It becomes enclosed, amplified, and momentarily deafening. The shouts, the lowing, and the coin clatter echo violently off the smooth stone walls, hitting you in a concentrated wave. You find yourself gazing up at the massive bolted wooden doors, reinforced with thick bands of iron, which are recessed deep within the stone. They look utterly immovable, permanent, a clear and forceful sign that this city is built to withstand any siege, any change in empire. Emerging from the deep shadow of the gatehouse, you are suddenly thrust into the immediate, labyrinthine intensity of the city streets. The organized chaos of the gate gives way to a spontaneous, dizzying movement. Narrow alleys branch off in every direction, lined by close-set, pale stone buildings that climb 2 or 3 stories high. The sun, previously unobstructed, is now broken into sharp, shifting shafts of brilliant light that penetrate the deep, shaded lanes. The smell of dust and animals is immediately replaced by a rich, savory miasma of cooking fires, freshly baking bread, fermenting fruit, and the sharp spices of the market stalls. The noise is different too, having lost the urgent sound of the choke point. Now, it is the layered sound of a dense, living city. A dog barking sharply in a nearby courtyard, a woman calling down from an upper window, the distinct rhythm of a carpenter's hammer, and the constant, soft scrape of thousands of sandals on the rough pavement. The massive stone architecture, though beautiful, feels immediately oppressive, closing in tightly over your head. The feeling is one of being immediately swallowed by the sheer density of population and construction. A sudden, complete separation from the open countryside. The immediate, necessary focus shifts from the immense walls to the practical human need. Finding a safe, quiet space to rest your body after the long, dusty journey, before the true spiritual work of the festival can begin. The need for simple, comfortable rest is paramount. A deep and unyielding demand from your tired muscles and overstimulated mind. The immediate pressure of the gate is gone, but the challenge of the urban sprawl remains. You now face the deep, bewildering hurdle of navigating the dense, swollen arteries of Jerusalem. The city is a temporary metropolis, its population exploding from thousands to perhaps 1 million for the festival. And every alleyway, every courtyard, and every accessible rooftop is now claimed space. You move slowly, weaving through the thick, unpredictable currents of the crowd. The massive stone buildings towering on either side. The light here is subdued and complex, filtered by the height of the structures, and the canvas awnings stretched over market lanes, breaking the sunlight into sharp, shifting patterns of light and shadow. Your legs, which held up so well under the steady, shared rhythm of the pilgrim road, now feel heavy and awkward as you constantly dodge children, donkeys laden with supplies, fast-moving locals, and the occasional nervous flock of tethered sheep. The goal is not luxury. It is simply a patch of dry stone to call your own for the few sacred nights of Passover. You walk with a keen, practiced eye, looking for the telltale sign of a kind face, a slightly ajar outer gate, or a spacious rooftop that looks like it could comfortably hold a few extra bedrolls. The streets are a vibrant tapestry of noise and life. The hawking of watermelons, the hammering of a coppersmith, the sudden burst of music. But the focus of your body is now entirely inward, seeking that single moment of physical surrender. The deep exhaustion of the long journey has crested and is now pulling at you relentlessly. A heavy, silent demand for stillness and safety. Finally, after passing several crowded inns, taverns, and courtyards packed shoulder to shoulder, you spot a promising, slightly quieter side street. Following a narrow, ancient flight of external stone stairs, you find yourself ascending to a relatively open, elevated rooftop. Here, a small group of pilgrims, perhaps 4 or 5, is already settling in. They are strangers, men and women from different provinces, but their shared purpose, their tired smiles, and their humble bedrolls create an instant, quiet camaraderie. The profound moment you drop your heavy pack onto the stone, you feel the tension instantly ease from your shoulders. The traveling is finally and irrevocably done. The simple act of making camp is a form of deep, almost subconscious meditation. You unroll your simple straw mat and your heavy woolen cloak onto the warm, rough-hewn stone of the roof. The stone, baked by the intense Judean sun all day, releases a comforting, residual heat that immediately begins to soothe your aching feet and tired muscles. You arrange your few possessions, a worn water skin, a small bag of dried figs and olives, and a humble clay oil lamp, into a neat, functional, and deeply satisfying arrangement. There is a deep, primal satisfaction in organizing your small world, in creating a patch of personal order within the vast, noisy chaos of the city. You join your new, temporary neighbors in preparing a very simple evening meal. There is no elaborate cooking, only the measured, quiet process of building a small, controlled fire using dried brush and charcoal in a shared, thick clay brazier. The smoke is thin and clean, carrying the faint, sweet scent of burning cedar and dry vine clippings. You warm the flatbread you carried and soften some dried fruit in a cup of water, perhaps sipping a little simple, watered wine. It is a meal of utter simplicity, focused entirely on restoring the body's depleted energy, and the shared, companionable silence of consumption with these strangers is a profound, unspoken act of community. You eat slowly, savoring the familiar, earthy taste of the grain and the salty richness of the olives, as the last brilliant shafts of sun sink behind the distant western hills, casting the sky in hues of deep violet and orange. A profound quiet descends upon the roof. From this height, the city below looks like a complex, quiet puzzle of dark shadows and soft, flickering oil lamps. The sounds of the day do not cease entirely, but they are muted, rising up to the roof as a distant, generalized hum, the slow, deep, communal breath of a city finally resting. You hear the far-off, rhythmic call of a temple guard, the gentle whistle of the evening breeze moving across the dry terracotta tiles, and the occasional soft cough from a neighbor. You sit for a long time, watching the first, brightest stars emerge in the deep, inky, black sky. The stars here, unpolluted by the perpetual lamps of the northern metropolises, are a dense, brilliant, silver spray of light, vast and silent above the clamorous earth. Your physical exhaustion now fully dominates your mind, pushing away all lingering thoughts of the road, the taxes, and the coming day's complex rituals. There is only the pleasant, heavy weight of your body, the persistent warmth of the stone beneath you, and the slow, deep drawing of breath. The sheer relief of stillness is immense. Before you finally lie down, you perform one last, quiet, ritualistic check. You dip your hands into the water skin and wipe the dust from your face, neck, and the soles of your feet, a small, personal act of preliminary cleansing. You know that tomorrow requires a deeper, more sacred purification, but this small, personal moment prepares your body for the necessary rest. You pull the rough, familiar wool of your cloak up around your ears, creating a simple, warm cocoon. Lying back, your head resting on your simple pack, you gaze up at the silent, overwhelming galaxy. You are cradled between the earth and the heavens, a single point of tired flesh resting on ancient stone. This profound physical stillness is the necessary precursor to spiritual readiness. The city waits, and a deep, restorative sleep is a sacred, necessary bridge to the purification that awaits you in the morning's clear light. The deep, restorative sleep of the pilgrim, earned by weeks on the road and finally delivered by the warm, silent stone of the rooftop, comes to an end with the first pale, gray light of dawn. The air is cool and clean, carrying only the faintest whisper of the waking city below. Before any journey to the sacred heart of Jerusalem can be made, before any foot is placed upon the vast expanse of the Temple Mount, the pilgrim must perform the necessary ancient act of ritual purification. This morning, you leave the lingering warmth of your temporary rest for the immediate, cool certainty of the subterranean world. You gather your simple washing cloth and your small coin pouch, leaving the quiet rooftop and descending back into the narrow, awakening streets. The city is still stirring, not yet roaring. The early hours are for quiet preparation, not commerce. Your steps are purposeful, leading you away from the rising noise and toward the known sources of clean, living water. The requirement for a mikveh, a ritual bathhouse, is strict. It must contain mayim hayim, or living water, meaning collected rainwater or spring water that flows freely, not water that has been carried by hand or has been standing long in a basin. You follow subtle signs and quiet directions until you reach a heavy, arched doorway that leads not into a building, but steeply down into the earth. You pay a small fee to the quiet attendant stationed near the entrance, who nods solemnly, and you begin your slow, careful descent down a series of worn stone steps. The steps are permanently wet and slick from the thousands of feet that use them daily, and your sandals scrape softly against the mossy, cool surface. The only sound apart from the slow, rhythmic drip of water somewhere in the darkness below. As you descend, the atmosphere changes utterly. You leave the bright, dry air of the city behind and enter a world of cool, silent stone, deep shadow, and profound quiet. The air becomes heavier, thick with the refreshing smell of damp earth and clean, cold mineral water. The light diminishes until it is only a dim, diffused glow filtering from the entrance above, creating an atmosphere of deep quietude and physical separation. This is a deliberate, physical step away from the sun, the dust, and the dizzying chaos of the world above. At the bottom of the steps, the mikveh chamber opens up. It is a simple, vault-like space carved directly from the bedrock, lined with smooth, pale stones. The chamber is lit dimly by a few small, oil-fed clay lamps placed high on ledges, casting soft, flickering orange light across the surface of the water. The main feature is the pool itself, a large, sunken basin of still, dark water, fed by the complex system of underground cisterns that capture the city's rains. The water is cold, clear, and perfectly motionless, reflecting the dim, flickering lights like polished obsidian. You move to a secluded corner to remove your outer garments, leaving only a simple, thin loincloth as required. The sudden coldness of the stone floor sends a sharp shiver up your spine, immediately sharpening your awareness of your physical self. You observe the few others in the chamber, a handful of fellow pilgrims, moving with hushed reverence, their prayers soft enough not to disturb the stillness. This is not a place for conversation or social recognition. It is a space solely for private contemplation and sacred preparation defined by silence. You step toward the edge of the pool and begin your slow, careful descent down the inner steps carved into the stone. Each step downward into the water is measured and deliberate. The coldness is immediate and startling, gripping your ankles, then your knees, then your thighs, demanding your absolute and full attention. The initial, painful shock gives way quickly to an intense, exhilarating coolness that seems to travel directly to your bones, erasing the last vestiges of heat and road fatigue from the day before. Standing fully immersed in the chest-deep water, you bow your head, closing your eyes. The only sound in the deep stillness is the gentle water lapping softly against the stone at your shoulders. You hold your breath, and then you fully immerse yourself, allowing the living water to close completely over your head. The world instantly becomes a quiet, muffled, watery embrace. You feel the water washing away, not just the physical dust of the road, but the lingering attachments and petty distractions of the secular world above. It is a moment of total spiritual reset. Rising slowly from the water, you feel an immediate, profound shift. The cold, subterranean air hits your skin, making you intensely aware of the difference between the cleansed self and the former, dusty self. You step slowly back up the water-slicked steps, the water draining cleanly from your body. You dry yourself quickly with your rough cloth, the chill quickly receding as you don your clean, fresh garments, a pure, simple white tunic and clean sandals. Leaving the mikveh is like rising from a deep, restful sleep. You ascend the steps, moving from the dark, quiet coolness back into the bright, dry, bustling warmth of the rising sun. The world above is fully awake now, filled with the loud, purposeful activity of the festival morning. But you are changed. The physical immersion has brought a necessary spiritual calm. The cool water has quieted your heart and focused your intent. You emerge onto the busy street feeling light, purified, and entirely prepared, mind and body unified, ready to begin the true, great ascent to the colossal Temple Mount that awaits you just ahead. The act of purification in the cool, silent depths of the mikveh is complete, and the spiritual charge you now carry demands physical expression. The morning air, now fully warmed by the strong Judean sun, feels crisp and invigorating on your clean skin. You are ready for the central act of the pilgrimage, the culmination of your journey, the ascent to the colossal temple platform. This is the moment for which you walk the long miles, the fulfillment of the ancient covenant. You join a steady, growing stream of fellow pilgrims, all men now, similarly cleansed and wearing fresh linens, who are moving toward the magnificent southern wall of the temple complex. Ahead of you, the sheer scale of the Herodian architecture begins to assert itself with overwhelming force. No longer are the walls a distant silhouette. They are a vast, unyielding, textured presence that fills the entire field of view. The path leads you directly to a truly magnificent, broad staircase, almost certainly the monumental Hulda steps that seem to climb forever, lifting you decisively from the level of the ordinary city up to the sacred heights of the platform. The steps are not uniform or regular. They are intentionally designed in sequences of long, wide treads and shorter, steeper risers. This clever, subtle variation ensures that you cannot rush, that your body must adopt a measured, slow, rhythmic gait that is almost like a dance. This intentional, slow, deliberate movement transforms the physical act of climbing into a spiritual metaphor, a slow, sustained elevation of the soul. Your pace aligns effortlessly with the quiet, shared steps of the thousands ascending around you, creating a powerful, rhythmic, communal beat that is deeply calming. As you climb, focus on the ancient, immense stone beneath your feet. It is a pale, creamy white, polished smooth by the sandals of countless millions of pilgrims who have made this same ascent over decades and centuries. You can feel the slightly convex shape of the treads, the subtle indentations worn deep into the stone by the collective weight of history. The sun is now high enough to warm the surface of the massive stones, and the radiant heat is pleasant, a dry, clean warmth that penetrates the soles of your feet and gently eases the last lingering stiffness and ache in your calves and thighs. With every few steps, the perspective shifts dramatically and profoundly. The city below, which moments ago felt dense, loud, and all-encompassing, now begins to shrink and spread out beneath you into an orderly, manageable pattern. You see the maze of narrow streets, the crowded rooftops where you slept, and the chaotic market squares becoming clearly defined, geometric shapes. The noise of the city, too, begins to recede and diminish, muffled by the rising height and the intensely focused attention of the climbing crowd. The atmosphere is solemnly reverent, yet infused with a palpable, quiet ecstasy, a collective joy that requires no shouting or wild display. You pass beneath the lower arches of the steps, which are themselves massive, curved architectural wonders of fitted stone. The sheer, breathtaking engineering of this complex, the perfectly cut and placed stones, the impossible precision of the curves and lines, speaks of a monumental ambition designed to both inspire and humble the observer. It is a silent, overwhelming reminder that you are approaching the most sacred place on earth, a structure built not merely by men, but in dedication to the divine presence. The deep, cool shadow beneath the arches provides a brief, welcome respite before you emerge again into the dazzling sunlight. Reaching the halfway point of the ascent, you pause briefly, not out of necessity, but in silent reverence, turning to look back. The view is spectacular. The sprawling hills of Jerusalem, the dark green patches of olive groves, and the winding, dusty roads you traveled, now reduced to thin, faint threads disappearing into the distance. This momentary pause allows you to feel the body's sustained hard work, the effort that has successfully lifted you above the profane world. The sun feels strong, beating down warmly on the back of your neck, and the air is dry, clear, and perfectly still, carrying only the faintest scent of stone and sun-heated dust. The final steps are the most potent and charged with meaning. You feel your heart beating a steady, measured tattoo against your ribs, a slow, powerful drum accompanying the final sacred approach. The stone platform, an impossibly vast expanse of polished, flat stone, looms just above you, seemingly impossible in its scale. At the very top of the steps, standing sentinel, are the final, colossal walls of the temple platform itself, the massive gate structures, seen before only from a distance, now directly before you, overwhelming in their sheer thickness and height. You step off the final riser and onto the wide, flat, blinding expanse of the Temple Mount. The stone here is even larger, smoother, and more pristine than the steps, reflecting the intense sunlight in a dazzling, blinding white. The noise you hear now is distinctly different. No longer the city's immediate clamor, but the muffled, interior sounds of the temple, distant, high-pitched chanting, the slow, rhythmic clang of a metal bell, and the low, heavy hum of the gathered multitude. The sense of achievement is profound, the physical pilgrimage now utterly complete. You stand at the threshold of the temple, ready to turn your attention from the massive architecture beneath your feet to the sacred, detailed, and spiritual world that stands upon this holy plateau. Stepping off the final riser of the great steps and onto the main expanse of the Temple Mount platform is like stepping onto another world, a world defined by human engineering, an absolute staggering scale. The air up here is different, immediately drier and clearer than the congested, dusty city streets you just left, carrying the faint, clean scent of cut cedar, hot stone, and the vast, open space itself. You stand on an immense plaza of pale, polished stone, so vast and so immaculately flat that it feels utterly unnatural, an immense, man-made plateau that effortlessly dwarfs the thousands of people scattered across it. Your immediate, overwhelming focus turns to the colossal walls surrounding this platform, the single, most impressive visible achievement of King Herod's notorious reign. These walls are not built with common bricks or small blocks of quarry stone. They are composed of massive, perfectly hewn stones, each one so large it would take a team of oxen and a score of trained men days to properly position. They are pale, creamy white, with subtle hints of pink or soft gold, depending on the precise angle of the intense sunlight, and they fit together without any visible mortar, so precisely that the eye can barely detect the seam between them. You walk slowly toward the edge of the platform, running your hand across the cool, smooth, slightly textured surface of one of these gigantic blocks. The sheer permanence of the stone is deeply humbling, a quiet testament to a structure intended to stand without fail for 1,000 years. It feels as if you are touching the very foundations of the world. The platform is so vast, covering many acres, that the main temple building itself still feels somewhat distant, dominating the eastern end of the complex. Your gaze is drawn, instead, to the impressive surrounding structures and colonnades that frame this immense space. Along the southern and western edges stretch the magnificent royal porticos, double rows of towering columns that provide necessary shade and shelter. You step beneath the generous shade of these colonnades, feeling the immediate, intense relief from the relentless midday sun. The columns are tall and slender, supporting meticulously carved stone ceilings that create long, echoing corridors. The light here is fractured and cool, creating long, clean stripes of shadow across the floor. The atmosphere in this space is one of profound, hushed awe. Although the space is constantly crowded with pilgrims from every corner of the known world, the sheer volume of the complex seems to absorb sound, making the overall effect less chaotic and more like a massive, unified murmur. The sound of thousands of sandals scraping the polished stone echoes softly and smoothly down the long, empty stretches of the colonnades. You can hear the distant, repetitive sound of prayers being murmured in small, serious groups. The soft, rhythmic cadence punctuated by the occasional clang of a gate being secured or the high-pitched call of a distant bird nesting in the roof timbers far overhead. The scale of the surrounding walls and structures is designed explicitly to prepare the mind for the even greater sanctity of the inner temple courts. You realize that this entire platform is less a simple courtyard and more a deliberate creation of controlled, purified space, a vast, segregated expanse designed to elevate the pilgrim above the ordinary sphere of physical existence. It is a necessary transition zone, a threshold measured not in physical meters, but in the crucial psychological shift from the clamor of the market world to the quiet focus of devotion. Your eyes meticulously trace the detailed beauty of the carved stone. Herod's masons carved intricate, repeating patterns into the cornices and archways. Geometric designs, flowing floral motifs, and other decorative elements that subtly soften the overwhelming brute strength of the construction. These carvings, catching the intense, direct sunlight, seem to shimmer and move, adding an illusion of delicate movement to the immense static strength of the stone. You pause to admire the shadow cast by one of the deeply recessed cornices, a perfect, sharp line of charcoal gray against the pale, reflective stone. The craftsmanship alone is a form of worship. At the massive corners of the platform, the architecture is particularly impressive, with immense square stone towers rising higher than the walls, serving both as Roman watchtowers and as strongholds. These towers are strategic and deeply intimidating, a clear, unmistakable display of the power, both imperial and religious, that guards this holy place. You can see the dark Roman standards flying from some of the highest points, a subtle but constant, heavy reminder of the political reality under which this spiritual center continues to operate. You move slowly along the southern edge of the platform, feeling the cool, massive, unshakable stones supporting you. The wall here drops straight down, hundreds of feet, to the Kidron Valley floor below. Looking over the edge, you feel a slight, dizzying sense of vertigo, underscoring the incredible elevation and the effort of your climb. The city you struggled through seems like a miniature toy village from this height, and the people bustling below are mere distant, meaningless specks. The physical height is a deliberate metaphor for the spiritual elevation you are meant to achieve by standing upon this sacred ground. This vast, open space also subtly but firmly forces you to move with respect and contemplation. There is no running, no shouting, and no unseemly haste permitted here. The sheer physical distance between points, the immense scale of the monumental gates, like the Beautiful Gate or the Nicanor Gate, which you can see in the distance, encourages a slow, contemplative, measured walk. You adjust your pace, letting the powerful environment dictate your movement, settling into a stride that is deliberate, calm, and deeply focused. The Herodian Colossus is a vessel. It contains and orders the chaos of the city, separating the sacred from the profane. It is a physical manifestation of purity, prepared by human hands for the divine presence. The feeling is one of being utterly secure and simultaneously completely overwhelmed, ready to pass through the next set of barriers and enter the truly living part of the temple complex, the area of the merchants and the sacrifices, which sits, noisy and vibrant, within this colossal, silent shell. You finally approach and pass through one of the towering inner arches, leaving the quietude of the monumental wall behind for the first tumultuous court. The moment you pass through the towering archway and step beyond the quiet shade of the outer colonnades, the atmosphere instantly shatters. You have entered the sprawling court of the nations, or the court of the Gentiles, a space of dizzying commerce, deafening noise, and global connection. The immense plaza, moments ago silent and reflective, is suddenly a marketplace of overwhelming energy, an unavoidable collision of the sacred and the profane. The sheer scale of the crowd here is exponentially larger, moving with a frenetic, urgent energy that contrasts sharply with the solemnity of the steps you just climbed. The sensory assault is immediate and total. Listen first to the noise. It is a high-pitched, chaotic din, a babble of dozens of different languages colliding and overlapping. You hear the crisp, authoritative syllables of Latin mixed with the fluid, argumentative tones of Greek, the rough, guttural shouts of Aramaic, and perhaps the sing-song cadence of merchants from Egypt, or the far reaches of Asia Minor. This noise is the sound of money changing hands, of prices being haggled over, and of goods being urgently promoted. It is loud, confusing, and relentless. The smells are equally intense, a pungent, complex blend of living creatures and commerce. You are immediately hit by the powerful, earthy aroma of the sacrificial animals. There are thousands of them here, penned in temporary wooden corrals. The dry, heavy scent of sheep's wool, the sharp, musky odor of goat, the clean, slightly dusty smell of doves fluttering nervously in woven cages. This animal scent is mixed with the rich, metallic smell of copper and silver coins, the sweet, earthy smell of fresh olive oil, and the sharp, sour tang of sweat and unwashed wool from travelers who have not yet sought the mikveh. Look closely at the movement in the court of the nations. It is a torrent of purposeful, frantic activity. The focus here is entirely practical. You see the money changers scattered in small clusters, their portable tables laden with various currencies from every kingdom. They sit with an air of concentrated, slightly predatory focus, their hands moving with blurring speed as they weigh foreign coinage, calculate the necessary temple shekel for the tax, and shout their exchange rates over the general din. The sound of their work, the constant clatter and clinking of bronze trays and silver coins, forms a metallic rhythm beneath the human voices and the animal cries. You walk through this current of activity, needing to keep a tight hold on your own purse. You watch merchants loudly selling all manner of necessities for the pilgrim: fresh wine, baskets woven from reeds, incense, and above all, the unblemished sacrificial animals required for the rites within the inner courts. These merchants are shouting, cajoling, and haggling, their faces flushed with the heat of commerce. This market is a vital necessity. The pilgrim needs to secure a ritually clean, approved animal and convert his foreign currency into the only coin acceptable for the temple treasury. It is the economic engine that sustains the entire pilgrimage system. The contrast between the overwhelming purity of the stone platform you stand on and the intense, dirty commercialism surrounding you is stark and unsettling. This is the place where the world comes closest to the sacred, rubbing its rough, profane edges against the very walls of the holy. It is the outer boundary, the space where all people, regardless of faith or background, are permitted to stand, to trade, and to observe. You find yourself carefully weaving your way through the confusion, trying to ignore the urgent appeals of the sellers and the frantic energy of the hagglers. Your eyes follow the path of the sacrificial animals. Drovers are leading small flocks of sheep toward the inner gates, their soft wool looking immaculate and white against the dark, polished stone. The scent of their imminent fate hangs in the air, a quiet undercurrent of impending sacrifice beneath the clamor of the marketplace. This is what all the trade is ultimately for: the restoration and cleansing of the relationship between man and the divine, purchased with the clang of coins and the cost of an unblemished creature. You realize that this chaos, though dizzying, is an integral part of the process. It is the essential, difficult work of translating the needs of the world into the requirements of the temple. But now, your personal work here is done. You have paid the final fees and secured your offerings. The noise of the market has served its purpose, but it is too loud, too distracting for the deeper focus that awaits. You deliberately turn your back on the babel of languages and the clatter of bronze. You face east, toward the central, elevated court where the pure worship takes place. You seek the next set of gates, moving toward the inner sanctity, a profound relief washing over you as you leave the overwhelming noise and confusion of the court of the nations behind. Your steps become slower, more measured again, transitioning from the hurried walk of the market to the deliberate pace of reverence, leaving the noise to settle into a dull, distant roar behind you as you seek the temple's true quiet symphony. Stepping away from the dense clamor of the court of the nations, you cross an invisible line, a subtle shift in the architecture that instantly changes the sensory experience. The physical noise of the money changers and the animal drovers recedes abruptly, transforming from a sharp, immediate assault into a dull, distant roar, like the sound of a distant, breaking ocean wave. Now, your senses focus purely on the sounds that define the true, sacred heart of the temple complex, revealing its living, ancient symphony. This chapter is an auditory landscape, inviting you to simply stand still and allow the waves of ritual sound to wash over you, deeply and completely. The air itself seems to vibrate with a constant underlying hum, a deep-throated murmur that rises collectively from 10,000 throats. This is the sound of prayer, of individual supplications and communal blessings, spoken simultaneously but quietly, creating a dense acoustic cloud that seems to lift like steam off the temple stone and rise toward the heavens. Close your eyes and let this vast, unified whisper surround you. It is the sound of faith itself, constant and unceasing, the quiet foundation upon which all other temple sounds are built. Piercing this constant murmur are the sharp, intentional sounds of the priesthood. Listen for the high, clear, metallic call of the shofar, sounded by a priest from a high vantage point to mark the hour and the commencement of a new service. This sound is not musical. It is a primal, urgent, sustained blast, cutting through the air, signaling sacred time to the entire city. The shofar's call is followed by the deep, rhythmic beat of a priest's foot during a specific liturgical procession, a distinct, deliberate sound of a heel hitting the polished stone floor, marking the measured pace of ritual. This slow, predictable rhythm is immensely calming, anchoring the mind amidst the chaos of the masses. From the innermost courts, a space you are not yet permitted to enter, comes the distinct, metallic clang of ritual activity. This might be the sound of a ladle or basin being set down, or the heavy scrape of a ceremonial knife. It is a sound of metal on stone, cold and precise, hinting at the necessary, bloody work of sacrifice being performed far beyond your sight. These distant, powerful clangs act as sonic punctuation marks, reminders of the profound, costly transactions taking place at the very center of the religious world. You hear the sudden, high-pitched, and slightly raw voices of the Levite choir, positioned on a raised platform near the inner entrance. Their singing is disciplined and powerful, a mixture of horns, lyres, and human voices raised in ancient psalms. The music swells and diminishes, not designed for entertainment, but for structured, communal worship. The rhythm of the music is slow and repetitive, its verses ancient, designed to carry the prayers of the people heavenward. The reverberation of the lyres against the towering stone walls creates a sustained, echoing quality that seems to penetrate the skin and vibrate in the chest. The sounds of water and fire are also present, subtle but vital. You can detect the faint hiss and crackle of the great altar's eternal fire, a sound that rarely ceases, mingling with the deep, rumbling sound of the smoke rising high into the atmosphere. The constant movement of water, used for purification and for the cleansing of the altar, provides a soft, washing background noise, a gentle flow over stone drains, a constant source of refreshment amidst the heat and smoke. As you stand here, letting the waves of sound wash over you, your physical pace slows to almost nothing. The sounds demand your stillness, pulling your attention away from your body's aches and the mental distractions of the city. You become an audience to this ancient living symphony, a listener whose role is merely to absorb the sound and be shaped by its rhythm. The temple is not just stone and gold. It is the constant, never-ending sound of its service, a spiritual machine running 24 hours a day, sustained by the devotion of the people and the ceaseless labor of its workers. The most constant and reassuring sound, however, is the shuffle of the officiants, the priests and the Levites, who move with a quick, quiet, purposeful step. They are the conductors of this symphony, moving between the inner courts, their voices raised in brief, authoritative commands or quiet, rapid recitations of blessing. As your eyes adjust to the slow, steady rhythm of the sound, they begin to settle on the figures whose voices carry the most focused authority and whose presence embodies the meticulous order of the temple. The priests themselves, moving with a disciplined grace amidst the crowd. This sight, the crispness of their appearance and the precision of their movements, becomes the final focus of your contemplative pause before moving deeper into the courts. Having found stillness in the temple's auditory landscape, your gaze now settles with quiet reverence on the figures whose very appearance embodies the order and sanctity of the place. The priests and Levites. These are the temple's workforce, the dedicated servants responsible for maintaining the rituals, the cleanliness, and the profound, meticulous schedule of the worship. They move with a visible, purposeful gravity, their footsteps quicker and more certain than the wandering, slow steps of the pilgrims. This chapter invites an intimate, slow description of their vestments, the robes that are far more than clothing. They are symbols of their sacred office. The common priests, the large majority who handle the daily sacrifices and general temple duties, are clad in meticulously maintained fine linen. Their tunics are a crisp, dazzling white, immaculate against the pale stone. The linen is often starched and perfectly clean, creating a powerful contrast with the humble, often dusty wool and leather worn by the average farmer pilgrim. The whiteness of their robes seems to absorb the sunlight, giving them a faint, luminous quality. You can almost feel the texture of the fine, smooth linen simply by watching it catch the light as they move. The Levites, who assist the priests, primarily manage the music, the gates, and the maintenance, and they too wear clean, white robes, though perhaps less intricately woven than those of the priests. Their movement is focused on utility. They carry wooden trays, metal implements, and large skins of water, always hurrying to their next task with a sense of urgency that is still remarkably quiet and composed. Their clean, serious expressions convey an unwavering dedication to their hereditary duty, acting as a constant, living reminder of the meticulous, necessary labor beneath the grand spectacle of the temple. Then, your eyes catch a flash of profound color and shimmer, signaling the presence of a higher-ranking official, or possibly the high priest himself. The high priest's vestments are a dazzling, overwhelming contrast to the simple white of the other clergy. His robe is made of rich blue-dyed linen, and over it he wears the ephod, a short waistcoat-like garment woven with gold, blue, purple, and scarlet thread. This garment is heavy with symbolic weight and actual gold. You focus on the flash of the precious stones embedded in the breastplate, the brilliant deep blue of sapphire, the rich green of emerald, the fiery red of carnelian, and the subtle purple of amethyst, each stone engraved with the name of an Israelite tribe. The sight is less one of ostentation and more of profound, controlled beauty, symbolizing the weight of the entire nation, resting on the shoulders of this single man. The priest's appearance, so clean, ordered, and detailed, is a deliberate, powerful counterpoint to the humble pilgrims. The pilgrim is dusty, tired, and in need of cleansing. The priest is perfectly pure, focused, and ready to intercede. The priests represent the constant, unblemished readiness of the temple itself. Their purposeful movement maintains a sense of order in the immense complex, creating pathways through the chaos, ensuring that the streams of people, those bringing offerings, those leaving, those praying, move in predictable, unhurried channels. Watch the priest's hands as they work. They are clean and meticulous, moving with practiced efficiency as they handle the sacred vessels, prepare the incense, or sprinkle the cleansing water. There is no fumbling, no hesitation. Every action is inherited and precise. Their faces are often expressionless, conveying a quiet, deep absorption in their duty, a sense of being entirely present in the sacred moment, disconnected from the distractions of the outside world. Their presence, the way they carry their bodies, and the meticulous maintenance of their vestments all tell a story of dedication that predates the Herodian stones and Roman rule. They are the constant living heart of the service. You feel a deep respect for the discipline required to maintain such a state of physical and ritual purity amidst the pressures of the thousands of people they serve. They are the gatekeepers, the functionaries, and the intercessors all in one. You now turn your attention away from the general movement of the priests, looking toward the eastern side of the complex. Your eyes settle on a specific area, clearly delineated by a low wall, a space where the rhythm of movement and the dress of the occupants changes slightly. This is the area of the court of the women, the boundary beyond which the majority of the community cannot pass, but where the female pilgrims stand to offer their prayers and observe the distant rites. This visual shift from the male, active, white-robed priesthood to the contained, colorful presence of the women prepares you to observe the next segment of the gathered multitude, realizing that the temple is a structure of segregated devotion, each space defined by specific spiritual roles and boundaries. The visual shift away from the quick, white-robed movement of the priesthood and toward the eastern expanse of the temple complex leads you to the court of the women. This is a vast, square enclosure separated from the inner courts by a low, symbolic wall. Yet it serves as the final, massive gathering space where all pilgrims, men and women, rich and poor, local and foreign, must congregate before any further advancement toward the sanctuary. You step into this court, and the atmosphere immediately changes again. It is less frenetic than the court of the nations, but more concentrated and deeply contemplative. The vastness of the space is its first great characteristic. It is an open, sun-drenched expanse of pale stone, large enough to hold tens of thousands of people. And though packed for the Passover, the sheer size prevents the suffocating crush of the outer market. The noise level drops considerably here. The high-pitched chaos of commerce is replaced by the low, steady sound of faith, a unified, gentle susurrus of prayers, spoken more intimately and with slower intention than the hurried whispers of the outer court. The air smells clean, dominated by the distant smoke of the altar and the dry, mineral scent of the sun-baked stone. Your eyes are immediately drawn to the perimeter of the court, where the physical expressions of sacrifice and devotion are made visible. Along the walls stand the 13 trumpet-shaped contribution chests, known as the shofirot, built into the stone. Each chest is marked with a Hebrew inscription indicating its specific use: for wood, for incense, for the gold plate overlay, or for the various types of thank offerings. The chests flare out at the top like enormous, polished bronze trumpets, designed to prevent fraudulent removal of the coins once they are dropped in. The most characteristic sound of this court is the rhythmic clink of coins being dropped into these treasuries. It is a sound of faith and sacrifice, a metallic punctuation mark of personal devotion. You watch as a woman in a simple, faded tunic approaches one of the chests, holding a small coin tightly in her hand. She pauses, closes her eyes for a moment in silent supplication, and then lets the coin drop. The tiny, sharp sound of the copper hitting the metal throat of the trumpet, followed by the muffled, hollow clink as it joins the growing pile inside, is deeply profound. It is the sound of a personal offering, quiet and meaningful, repeated hundreds of times across the court. The sound speaks not of market transaction, but of genuine giving. The women of the pilgrimage are the most prominent presence here. They stand in quiet clusters, their heads covered with simple, brightly colored shawls, reds, deep blues, and ochres, forming islands of contained color against the massive backdrop of the pale stone. Their prayers are often offered in a quieter, more intimate way than the more public pronouncements of the men. You see their lips moving, their hands folded, their gaze fixed toward the inner courts, their devotion unwavering and intensely personal. This court is a powerful testament to the communal, yet private, nature of their spiritual lives, the furthest point to which they may advance, yet a space of profound spiritual connection. In the center of the court of the women, you notice a small, slightly elevated semicircular platform made of smooth, darker stone. This is one of the designated areas where rabbis and scholars sometimes stand to deliver sermons and public teachings to the gathered multitudes. Even now, though no formal teaching is taking place, a few small groups are gathered around the platform, engaged in quiet, earnest discussion, their hands gesturing lightly as they debate a point of law or interpret an ancient scripture. The intellectual hum is quiet and intense, adding a layer of scholarly contemplation to the court's overall atmosphere of prayer. The feeling here is one of shared devotion, of a collective pause before the final ritualistic movements of the pilgrimage begin. All differences of wealth, status, and origin seem to temporarily vanish, subsumed by the shared expectation of the Passover ritual. The light in the court is intense, falling directly from the zenith, casting short, clean shadows. The air is slightly warm, but the vast height of the walls keeps a gentle, steady breeze flowing across the stone floor, offering constant natural refreshment. As your body relaxes into the slow, meditative rhythm of this vast space, your gaze is naturally drawn eastward across the low, defining wall to the next physical barrier that controls the access to the altar and the sanctuary. This is the inner gate, a monumental structure of bronze that shines with a rich, dark gleam in the intense sunlight. It is the final boundary, the dividing line between the general community and the holy, restricted area of the priests. You have traveled a long way, moved through chaos and cleansing, and now your vision is fixed on this majestic, final threshold, the immense, unwavering barrier of the Nicanor Gate. The slow, deep drawing of breath and the profound stillness of your feet on the polished stone prepare you for the last great step inward. The next segment of the journey will involve leaving the crowd behind and entering the precise, highly controlled order of the ritual space. Your prolonged moment of contemplation in the vast, quiet court of the women now draws to a close, and your purified body naturally follows the flow of other male pilgrims toward the next and most formidable physical barrier, the Nicanor Gate. This is not a simple door or archway. It is a grand, monumental entrance, an edifice of polished bronze that separates the inclusive court of the women from the exclusive, highly restricted ritual areas where the animal sacrifices and priestly duties are performed. The gate is immense, towering over the heads of the people, its presence dominating the entire eastern face of the inner sanctuary. The sheer size of the Nicanor Gate is breathtaking, built to the same staggering scale as the colossal Herodian stones, yet composed of a material that is both heavy and luminous. The bronze is thick and rich, polished by countless hands, and by generations of careful temple maintenance until it shines with a deep, dark, almost obsidian gleam in the direct sunlight. The surface of the metal is smooth and cool, even under the intense heat of the Judean morning, inviting a moment of physical connection as you approach, perhaps resting a hand on its massive, cold frame. The gate's metal is not merely decorative, it is a heavy, functional declaration of boundary, an unwavering line of separation between the sacred and the ultra-sacred. The symbolic weight of passing through this barrier is palpable, creating a collective feeling of heightened anticipation among the waiting pilgrims. To step through this gate is to move closer to the holy place than most people in the world will ever come. It is a final, significant step in the purification journey, signaling that you are now entering a space reserved only for those who are ritually clean and fully prepared to participate in or witness the most sacred rites. The world narrows abruptly at this point, contracting from the open, public expanse into a focused, highly controlled channel of devotion. At the sides of the gate, and standing directly in the throat of the passage, are the Levite guards. They move with an air of absolute, quiet authority, their white robes crisp and clean, They are the human embodiment of the boundary, maintaining the strict flow and checking the ritual purity of those wishing to pass further inward. Their eyes are sharp, serious, and unwavering, constantly scanning the faces of the pilgrims, ensuring that only men who are prepared and purified are allowed to proceed. Their presence is a quiet, powerful reminder of the meticulous laws of exclusion that govern the temple's inner functions. As you stand waiting your turn in the measured queue, you can admire the rich, complex detailing of the bronze itself. The metal is wrought with intricate, dense patterns, perhaps stylized vine leaves, geometric repetitions, or symbols representing the tribes of Israel. These patterns are not sharply defined, but softened by the continuous polishing, giving the bronze a smooth, luxurious texture that reflects the light in deep, shifting tones of brown and black. The metal feels incredibly heavy, utterly permanent, a fixed point of divine order in a constantly changing world. The passage through the gate is brief but profound. As you move forward, you feel the physical constriction of the passage, the bronze pressing in on either side. For a moment, you are fully enclosed by the gleam of the metal and the immensity of the stone archway that frames it. The cool, smooth touch of the bronze as you brush past it is startlingly cold against your warm skin, a final physical reminder of the purity required for entry. The air in the throat of the gate seems to hold its breath, hushed by the sheer weight of the architecture and the solemnity of the passage. Stepping out onto the other side of the Nicanor gate, you immediately feel the change in atmosphere. The crowd thins dramatically. The noise from the court of the women behind you is instantly reduced to a faint, gentle whisper, leaving you in a space defined by profound silence and heightened purpose. You are now standing in the court of Israel. The difference is stark. You have left the space of general prayer and collective gathering and entered a small, highly restricted viewing area, a waiting room for the direct, intense contemplation of the sacrificial service. The casual movement and shared intimacy of the outer court are gone, replaced by an intense, disciplined reverence. The world has truly narrowed to the most sacred critical activity, and your gaze is fixed ahead on the small, defined space where only the ritually focused may stand. Beyond the colossal, dark gleam of the Nicanor gate lies the court of Israel, a space that is immediately, profoundly different from any you have traversed so far. This is no longer a public courtyard for gathering or commerce. It is a narrow, highly restricted viewing and waiting area. A long strip of intensely sacred stone reserved exclusively for ritually pure male pilgrims who are actively participating in or closely observing the daily temple rituals. The transformation in atmosphere is total and immediate, replacing the murmur of the outer courts with a silence that is almost absolute. The profound stillness here is palpable, a tangible pressure in the air that requires you to adjust your breathing and your internal rhythm. Every sound, the soft scrape of a sandal, the gentle rustle of a priest's linen robe, is amplified in the stillness, forcing an acute, intense awareness of every small physical movement. The light here is sharp and focused, reflecting off the clean, polished stone and highlighting the immaculate order of the space. You join the orderly rows of observers. The men stand shoulder to shoulder, facing inward toward the center of the court where the priests perform their duties. There is no conversation, only intense, shared anticipation. The seriousness on the faces of the men surrounding you is profound, their eyes fixed on the activity unfolding beyond the low barrier that separates the court of Israel from the court of the priests. This barrier is a subtle delineation, a low stone step or curb that demarcates the separation of roles, emphasizing that while the pilgrim is here to witness, the physical work of atonement belongs solely to the hereditary priesthood. From your vantage point in the court of Israel, you have a clear, uninterrupted view across this low barrier into the central working space of the priests. You can see the white-robed figures moving quickly, their actions precise and economical, engaging in the complex, ancient tasks of preparing the offerings, carrying vessels of wine and oil, and attending to the great altar. The sight is both deeply humbling and intensely compelling. This is the spiritual engine of the nation laid bare before your eyes, running with focused, divine precision. The stillness of the air contributes powerfully to the sense of closeness to the divine. With the sensory distractions of the outer world finally removed, your mind is left clear, focused entirely on the visible ritual and the meaning it conveys. This quietude is not empty. It is charged with the collective concentration of hundreds of observers, all silently contemplating the weight of their own offerings and the immense significance of the atonement being performed on their behalf. Every breath you take here feels deliberate and sanctified. Your gaze is naturally, inevitably drawn to the massive structure that dominates the inner court, commanding all attention, the great altar of burnt offering. Its presence is immediate and overwhelming, the focal point around which all activity revolves. It is a staggering, square mound of stone and fire, rising high above the ground, instantly recognizable as the spiritual heart of the entire temple complex. The altar is stark white, massive, and utterly unforgiving in its dimensions, a testament to the unyielding requirement for sacrifice and offering. You can clearly see the enormous ramp, made of solid, packed earth and stone, leading up the side of the altar, allowing the priests access to the top. The ramp is a wide, powerful pathway of service, worn smooth by the ceaseless movement of the priest's feet. The movement of the priests ascending and descending this ramp is constant, a slow, determined rhythm that speaks of the continuous, unceasing nature of the temple's work. Standing in the court of Israel is to be poised on the absolute edge of the sacred, perfectly positioned to absorb the sight, the sound, and the atmosphere of the great work of the temple. The feeling of being so close, yet separated by that low curb, is a profound psychological experience, emphasizing the humility required to approach the divine. Every moment here is one of silent preparation, a deep, collective holding of breath before the ritual begins anew. All the journey, all the cleansing, all the waiting has led to this quiet, intense point of observation, where the very structure of the temple, its stone, its silence, and its fire, begins to speak directly to the soul. The gaze, focused intensely from the quiet, contained space of the court of Israel, now rests entirely upon the great altar of burnt offering. This structure is not merely a part of the temple. It is the spiritual and physical heart of the entire complex, the point of absolute nexus between the human and the divine. You behold it as an immense, overwhelming object of white stone and constant fire, a testament to the unyielding requirement for continuous atonement. The altar is massive, a huge, perfect square built of unhewn, unblemished white stone, rising higher than a man. The stark white of its exterior is clean and unforgiving, contrasting sharply with the dark, sooty char and the brilliant, terrifying orange of the fire that constantly consumes its summit. The sheer scale of the structure demands complete and silent respect. Its base, its sides, and the entire ramp leading up to its top are solid and permanent, built to endure the heat, the blood, and the thousands of sacrifices offered upon it daily and yearly. Focus on the physical details of the stone itself. It is rough, simple, and powerful, uncut by iron tools, as required by the ancient law, preserving its natural, sacred state. The long, wide ramp leading up to the altar is its most dominant feature, a sweeping pathway of stone and packed earth, designed to prevent the priests from having to climb steps, which would require an unseemly exposure of the body. You trace the movement of the priests ascending and descending this ramp, their clean, white robes moving with quick, measured steps, carrying offerings upward or bringing ashes downward. This constant, rhythmic motion emphasizes the altar's role as the tireless center of the temple's work. The sensory details of the altar are overwhelming, demanding your full attention. The first sensation is the heat. Even standing at a distance in the court of Israel, you can feel the intense, dry, radiating warmth of the perpetual fire. It is a heat that speaks of immense energy, a constant, focused conflagration that never dies down. The air directly around the altar shimmers slightly under the sustained thermal pressure. The second sensation is the smell. The air is thick with the rich, complex aroma of the burning offerings. It is a profound, mingling fragrance of constant smoke, not the thin, sweet smoke of incense, but the heavy, meaty, earthy scent of burnt fat, wood, and sacrificial animal flesh. This odor is unique to the temple, a constant, powerful reminder of the physical cost of atonement, a smell that speaks directly to the meaning of the work performed here. And then there is the fire itself. It is enormous, a roaring, living thing that sits on the altar's top. You watch the flames, great, consuming sheets of brilliant orange and yellow, constantly licking at the sky. They hiss, crackle, and spit as fresh wood is added. The sound of the burning timber, a constant, loud counterpoint to the distant prayer murmur of the crowd. The fire is not random. It is meticulously tended, separated into different sections for the various types of offerings, ensuring maximum consumption and the clean, ceaseless ascent of the smoke. The altar is a silent, immovable testament to constant atonement. It operates without pause, serving as the required point of intersection between the needs of the human world, sin, gratitude, restoration, and the divine requirement for purity. Everything that occurs in the temple complex, the money changing, the animal commerce, the purification rites, all flows toward this one central point of consumption and release. You watch as a priest, moving with intense concentration, prepares to add a fresh offering to the flames. He moves with a slow, deliberate strength, his white robes contrasting sharply with the deep, sooty blackness that stains the surrounding stone near the top of the altar. The immense scale of the fire, the precision of the priestly work, and the pervasive smell of smoke all prepare your soul for the focus required by the imminent Passover rituals. The great fire of the altar is a physical, terrifyingly beautiful expression of the divine presence, an active, demanding heart that sustains the entire structure and defines the meaning of the pilgrimage. This immense, fiery presence is the stage for the final, most sacred observations of your journey. The immense, fiery presence of the altar has prepared your soul. And now, before the great swell of the Passover influx fully breaks, you are privileged to witness the daily foundational ritual, the morning to meat sacrifice. This is the temple's perfect rhythmic heartbeat, a finely choreographed ancient ritual that happens regardless of the season or the festival, anchoring the entire system in unceasing, meticulous dedication. It is an act of mechanical, spiritual precision, a constant offering made on behalf of the entire nation, performed every morning and every afternoon. The atmosphere in the court of Israel shifts from intense contemplation to focused observation. The priests, those white-robed figures you have been observing, now move with an even greater sense of purpose, enacting a sequence of movements that has remained unchanged for centuries. The coordination is seamless, a quiet, powerful display of dedication that requires no verbal direction, only inherited knowledge. It is a dance of duty, performed to a rhythm set by the deep, ancient clock of the temple. First, your attention is drawn to the meticulous preparation of the altar itself. A group of priests ascends the great ramp, carrying dry, precisely cut wood. They carefully lay the logs upon the already glowing coals, ensuring the fire is nourished and the new wood is set in a specific, interlocking pattern that encourages maximum consumption and a clean, steady flame. The sound here is the light, dry crackle of fresh timber igniting, followed by a slight, purposeful scraping sound as a priest smooths the bed of coals with a long bronze implement. Every action is measured. Every placement is exact. There is no haste, only reverence. Once the fire is prepared, the chosen lamb for the sacrifice is brought forward. It is a perfect, unblemished animal, led by a priest with a steady, quiet hand. The contrast between the animal's small, soft, living presence and the immense, fiery stone of the altar is profound. The priest stands over the lamb, his hands gently steadying the creature, and begins the necessary preparatory prayers. These are not loud shouts, but solemn, deeply resonant recitations, the words themselves forming another layer of the temple's symphony, defining the purpose of the imminent act. The moment of the slaughter is quick, efficient, and deeply solemn. It is not a moment of violence, but of consecrated duty. The priest, using a specialized, sharp knife, performs the act with swift, practiced precision. The focus then immediately shifts to the collection of the blood, the life force, which must not touch the ground. Silver vessels are swiftly brought forward. They are long, slender, and highly polished, reflecting the intense light of the morning sun. The vessels are passed to a waiting line of priests who stand in a silent, parallel row, ready to receive the flow. This transfer of the silver vessels, one to the next, is a marvel of human choreography. The vessels have a pointed base, meaning they cannot be set down. They must be constantly handled and passed. The priests stand ready, their movements synchronized, allowing the blood to flow without interruption from vessel to vessel, down the line toward the base of the altar. It is a silent river of purification, moving with an almost mechanical perfection before the final priest pours the collected blood against the altar's base. This entire sequence, the prayer, the slaughter, the collection, and the pouring, is completed in a matter of moments, executed with the utmost cleanliness and order. As the central act of the offering proceeds, your attention is drawn to the edge of the court of Israel where the Levites are assembling. They are preparing for the accompanying musical component of the service. You can see them tuning their instruments, the harpists gently testing the tension of their strings, the players of the cymbals silently rubbing their bronze discs, and the trumpeters raising their long, silver instruments to their lips, ready to sound the notes of the accompanying psalm. The air is filled with the faint, pleasant twang of strings and the quiet metallic hum of preparation, a promise of the melodic wave that is about to break. The profound rhythm of the Tamid sacrifice underscores the perfect order of the temple's system. It is a ritual designed to sustain the world, an act of measured, quiet dedication that happens every single day, creating a constant conduit of atonement and connection. This daily rhythm is the foundation, and now that you have witnessed its perfect execution, you feel the atmosphere of the court of Israel beginning to intensify. The sense of peace and order is about to give way to the exhilarating pressure of the Passover pilgrimage, a ritual where the quiet commitment of the Tamid must expand 1,000-fold to accommodate the entire nation's need for cleansing and worship. You brace yourself, ready for the quiet order to give way to the mass coordination of the festival. The quiet, perfect order of the morning Tamid sacrifice, that steady, rhythmic heartbeat of the temple, is abruptly and dramatically shattered by a swelling tide of people, marking the immediate, immense intensification of the Passover festival. This is the moment for which thousands have traveled, the collective slaughter of the Passover lamb, and the temple activity swells with a colossal, almost overwhelming energy to meet the demands of the ancient rite. The atmosphere transforms violently from the measured calm of the daily service into a dense, surging current of focused, shared anticipation, a powerful psychological pressure that you feel pressing in on you from all sides. You feel the increase in crowd density and pressure immediately as the court of Israel begins to fill to its absolute capacity with pilgrim families. They press forward in immense numbers, a slow, unstoppable human wave preparing to enter the priest's court to offer their personal sacrifices. The sheer volume of people is staggering. You look out across the inner court and see a veritable sea of white wool and determined, solemn faces. Each man is standing shoulder to shoulder, tightly clutching his family's unblemished lamb. Small, placid creatures, their heads tucked beneath their owner's arms, their rough white wool looking clean and soft against the dark, simple robes of the pilgrims. The collective bleating of thousands of lambs, though muted by the dense crowd and the imposing stone, forms a strange, high-pitched chorus beneath the deep, anxious hum of the multitude. This is the sound of necessary sacrifice, a fragile, living soundtrack to the moment of spiritual reckoning. The air, which was only moments ago relatively clear, now feels thick with the heat of so many bodies, the rising dust stirred by thousands of feet, and the faint, earthy scent of the animals. The temple, which even at full capacity seemed large and empty moments ago, now feels intensely, profoundly full. Its immense structure tasked to its absolute limit to contain this spiritual fervor. To manage this immense undertaking, the processing of potentially hundreds of thousands of sacrifices in the short span of a single afternoon, the priesthood operates not randomly, but in three distinct, perfectly coordinated shifts or companies. This requires a level of coordinated effort that is almost unbelievable, a logistical miracle executed through deep religious commitment. You watch as the priests, their white robes still miraculously immaculate, work in tireless synchronization, moving the people and the animals through the necessary phases of the ritual with calm, efficient, and unwavering authority. They are not merely performing a religious duty. They are acting as the gears and levers of a colossal, sacred machine. Your focus narrows, drawing into the personal experience of the pilgrim, the man holding the lamb that represents his household. You watch as a man standing near you gently strokes the soft, slightly oily wool of his lamb with a thumb, his face a mixture of deep solemnity and profound, quiet belief. This animal is more than livestock. It is the tangible embodiment of his family's protection and freedom, a living, breathing link back to the defining, terrifying moment of the nation's history in Egypt. The feeling of the rough wool, the soft, surprising weight of the animal, is a powerful physical sensation that connects the man instantly and deeply to the gravity of the offering he is about to make. His entire spiritual standing and that of his family rests on this one unblemished creature. You observe the priest who approaches this man. His demeanor is kind, yet his eyes are serious and direct, reflecting the profound weight of the task ahead. There is no rushed impatience, only focused, immediate commitment. The priest offers a brief blessing, his hand resting lightly on the lamb's head before he prepares to guide the man toward the altar. The movement is gentle but firm, a clear, silent direction toward the sacred duty. The priest's presence is a comforting bridge between the pilgrim's anxiety and the absolute necessity of the divine law. The immense, coordinated effort is visible in every corner of the inner court. Outside the viewing area, you can see Levite workers constantly moving large, specialized bronze implements, hooks set into the ground, used for stabilizing the lambs during the sacrifice, and long rows of wooden poles and basins, preparing the specialized infrastructure for the efficient removal of the offering after the blood is collected. The entire inner court has been transformed from a silent place of contemplation into a meticulously organized slaughterhouse of atonement, a place where the physical act of life and death is managed with perfect spiritual cleanliness, ensuring that ritual purity is never compromised by the scale of the endeavor. As the man near you is gently guided forward, the focus becomes almost unbearably sharp, narrowing to the specific, small ritual blade being prepared. The priest's hand moves to the knife, which gleams with a cool, sharp brilliance, reflecting the sudden intensity of the sun. It is the instant when the physical reality of the sacrifice collides fully and finally with the spiritual necessity. This dramatic climax is not one of shouting or spectacle, but of quick, profound efficiency, the essential, ancient, life-giving act about to be performed with total control. The entire world seems to pause. The noise of the thousands of people holding their breath as the ritual blade is raised, transitioning immediately into the first, quick spiritual and physical act of the sacrifice itself. The deep sound of the shofar is heard again, marking the moment of the first shift's commencement, a long, sustained blast that seems to hold the very air in suspension, ushering in the torrent of blood and music. The long, sustained, powerful blast of the shofar announces the true commencement of the Passover ritual, and the immense, coordinated machinery of the offering surges into its terrifyingly efficient operation. This chapter is dedicated to the swift, precise ritual that transforms the thousands of individual lambs into a collective, unified, holy offering, a torrent of cleansing and atonement flowing toward the great, waiting altar. The speed and synchronization of the event are astonishing, demanding that your mind registers the details in a blur of focused, purposeful motion. The priests stand in parallel rows, a seemingly endless chain that stretches from the area of the slaughter all the way to the base of the great altar. Their hands are the focus of this segment of the ritual, moving with an unwavering, hereditary certainty. The most characteristic and mesmerizing sight of the entire service is the continuous passing of the silver and gold basins. The blood, collected swiftly and cleanly from the thousands of lambs, is immediately placed into these specialized vessels. They are highly polished, reflecting the sunlight with a dazzling brilliance, some made of cool, fine silver, others of even richer, softer gold. The alternating metal creates a rhythmic flash as they move down the line, a shimmering river in motion. Watch the priest's hands. With an unblinking, machine-like speed, they pass the basins from hand to hand down the long, parallel lines. It is a human conveyor belt, a river of purification being transferred with perfect, silent coordination. The vessels have a specially designed pointed base, meaning they cannot be set down and must be constantly handled and passed. The priests stand ready, their movements synchronized, allowing the stream of collected blood to flow without interruption from vessel to vessel, down the line toward the base of the altar. This is not merely an action. It is a profound spectacle of unity and dedication. Before the final priest in the line pours the contents out, the sound of the liquid hitting the stone a constant, gentle washing sound beneath the growing noise of the court. The air is now thick with the heady scent of the sacrifice, Yet the speed and cleanliness of the process prevent any sense of disorder or spill. Simultaneous with this intense physical torrent, the Levite choir bursts forth into the full, magnificent glory of the Hallel, the great song of praise for deliverance. Standing in their designated places on a raised platform, they are a powerful, unified force of sound that seeks to drown out the practical noise of the slaughter. The music is sudden and overwhelming, transforming the atmosphere instantly. The deep-throated murmur of the male voices swells into a soaring, emotional wave, accompanied by the bright, sharp crash of the cymbals, the intricate, delicate, plucked rhythm of the harps, and the sharp, triumphant announcement of the long, silver trumpets. The trumpets, in particular, sound a sustained, triumphant fanfare that reverberates off the stone walls, creating a powerful physical sense of awe. This is not background music. It is the sound of the entire nation offering its gratitude, its awe, and its fear to the heavens. A deliberate sonic response to the immense act of atonement occurring just yards away. The soaring sound washes over the court of Israel, enveloping you completely. The intensity of the music, coupled with the focused sight of the thousands of men performing their sacrifices and the rapid, unending flow of the basins, creates a sense of dizzying spiritual ecstasy. The music elevates the physical reality of the slaughter into a transcendent, necessary act of faith and renewal. You feel the deep, chest-resonating vibrations of the trumpets, the complex rhythm of the strings filling every corner of the high stone walls. The sound is an emotional release, a moment of profound, shared national unity and memory. As the music continues its steady, powerful ascent, the physical work concludes. The priest, having completed the ritual of the blood, turns back to the pilgrim. He carefully detaches the parts of the lamb destined for the altar, the precious layers of fat, the rich internal organs, and the kidneys, and places them onto a dedicated tray. These portions are immediately carried to the summit of the altar for swift consumption by the eternal fire, rising up as a pleasing aroma. The remaining body of the lamb, now consecrated and ritually clean by the application of its own blood and the performance of the rite, is carefully handed back to the head of the household. The moment of the handover is quiet, an intimate, profound transaction amidst the surrounding noise and music. The lamb is now heavier, ready to fulfill its final sacred purpose, the communal meal of the Passover Seder. The priest, his expression still serious but softened by the completion of the duty, gives a final, brief blessing, sending the pilgrim and his family forth to complete the next stage of the ancient command. You watch as the man, clutching the warm, newly consecrated offering, turns and begins to make his way, slowly but purposefully, out of the inner court. His task complete, prepared for the Seder meal, where this holy meat will be consumed in remembrance and celebration of the first great deliverance. The immense scale of the blood ritual, the sight of the thousands of sacrifices, and the subsequent consumption by the great altar all highlight one of the most fundamental necessities of the inner temple: constant, rigorous cleansing. This need for endless purification brings your attention to the vast, shimmering structures dedicated entirely to water, the Great Laver, often called the Bronze Sea, and the smaller auxiliary basins. This chapter focuses entirely on the physical ritual of washing, a visible, repetitive, and profound sign of spiritual purity maintained through constant, diligent physical effort. The Great Laver is a truly monumental basin of shining bronze located prominently in the court of the priests between the altar and the entrance to the sanctuary. It is a vessel of staggering size and artistry, capable of holding thousands of gallons of water, and its bronze surface is polished to an immaculate, highly reflective sheen. In the intense Judean sunlight, the bronze shimmers like a contained, metallic body of water itself, creating flashes of brilliant, reflected light that momentarily dazzle the eye. The smooth, cold quality of the material and the sheer scale of the structure is a testament to the immense skill, labor, and wealth required to cast such a colossal, flawless artifact. The metal is thick, enduring, and utterly practical in its design. The most fascinating and vital aspect of the laver is its utility. It is equipped with numerous bronze spouts, or faucets, designed to ensure that multiple priests can wash simultaneously without waiting, allowing the ceaseless, time-critical work of the temple to continue unimpeded. You watch the priests, moving quickly, almost immediately after handling the sacrificial blood, approach the laver. They turn the spouts, and the water flows instantly and constantly, creating a quiet, soothing, rushing sound of liquid over metal. The water itself is cool and clear, drawn from the immense underground cisterns deep beneath the temple complex, ensuring a constant, fresh supply even during the high demand of the festivals. The priests perpetually wash their hands and their feet, a critical ritual of spiritual purity made visible and mandatory. They cup their hands beneath the strong, clean stream, the water running over their fingers and wrists, cleansing them of any physical contamination from the sacrifice before they handle the sacred vessels, prepare the incense, or enter the inner sanctuary. The action is repetitive, constant, and deeply necessary, a visual demonstration that the state of holiness is not static, but an active, maintained condition. The priests stand with their arms bare, the white linen tunics pulled up slightly, focused entirely on the refreshing, cleansing contact of the water, performing this duty with the same focused reverence they apply to the sacrifice itself. The air in this area carries a clean, refreshing smell that contrasts sharply with the nearby, heavy, coppery scent of the sacrifices and the earthy odor of the burnt fat. Here, the aroma is dominated by the pure, neutral scent of moving water and the cool, slightly metallic smell of the polished bronze, a refreshing, vital counterbalance to the intense heat and the smoke. It is a place of immediate renewal, a necessary pause in the intensity of the service, where the priests themselves are continually returned to a state of ritual readiness before rejoining the ceaseless flow of duty. The constant, rhythmic sound of the water splashing onto the clean stone floor and flowing into the drains is a soothing, continuous presence that underlies all other noise in the inner court. The presence of the bronze sea is a profound symbolic reminder to all who stand in the court of Israel, even in the immediate presence of the divine, and especially after performing the most sacred duties that involve life and death. purification is endless and immediately required. Holiness is not a goal to be reached once, but a continuous state to be maintained moment by moment, requiring continuous effort and the application of clean, rushing water. The metal of the laver, cold and enduring, holds this endless cycle of cleansing. This focus on the physical necessity of cleansing now naturally leads your attention away from the ground and toward the quality of the air itself. While the smoke of the altar is constant, heavy, and earthy, it is balanced by another, far more delicate, sweet, and complex aroma emanating from the inner sanctuary, the sacred incense. The air quality in the court of the priests is a unique, powerful mixture of fire, fat, and a soaring, complex sweetness. The heavy smoke of the sacrifice must be constantly, actively counteracted to make the space suitable for the divine presence. And it is the incense, the final purification of the very atmosphere, that defines the temple's unique, holy air. Your gaze is drawn past the washing priests and the massive bronze sea toward the dark, inviting, veiled opening of the sanctuary itself, the source of this ethereal, fragrant cloud. This focus on the physical necessity of cleansing now naturally leads your attention away from the ground and toward the quality of the air itself. While the smoke of the altar is constant, heavy, and earthy, it is balanced by another, far more delicate, sweet, and complex aroma emanating from the inner sanctuary, the sacred incense. The air quality in the court of the priests is a unique, powerful mixture of fire, fat, and a soaring, complex sweetness. The heavy smoke of the sacrifice must be constantly, actively counteracted to make the space suitable for the divine presence. And it is the incense, the final purification of the very atmosphere, that defines the temple's unique, holy air. Your gaze is drawn past the washing priests and the massive bronze sea toward the dark, inviting, veiled opening of the sanctuary itself, the source of this ethereal, fragrant cloud. This chapter is a complete sensory immersion, demanding that you experience the temple not just through sight and sound, but through the complexity of its holy odors. The air is truly a battlefield of sense, a constant physical struggle between the earthly requirements of atonement and the heavenly requirements of purity. The dominant, heavy foundation of the scent profile is, unquestionably, the odor of the great altar. It is a powerful, primal smell, the heavy, coppery scent of the thousands of Passover sacrifices, the pervasive, acrid smell of burnt fat and bone, and the earthy smoke of the cedar logs used to feed the perpetual fire. This smell is the raw, unavoidable scent of repentance, the evidence of death and life force being offered up. It is thick, grounding, and absolutely constant, never fading from the inner courts. Overlaying this foundation, however, are the layers of purification. One layer is the cleansing, sharp, dry smoke rising from the countless cedar logs and pine wood used on the altar, which, though contributing to the smoke, also carry a distinct aromatic resin that cuts through the heavier odors. This wood smoke acts as a rough filter, a purifying scent, pushing back the smell of the consuming fire. Yet, even this is not sufficient to fully prepare the atmosphere for God's dwelling. The critical, defining aroma is the rich, complex, sweet, an utterly unique smell of the specialized incense. This sacred compound, known as the ketoret, is mixed according to an ancient secret formula, used only in the temple and nowhere else in the world. It is a fusion of 11 distinct spices: balsam, frankincense, galbanum, and others, ground finely and blended precisely. The aroma is unlike anything else. It is deep, musky, and earthy when unburned, but when heated, it releases a cloud of ethereal sweetness that is almost intoxicating. This fragrance is not merely pleasant, it is deeply symbolic, representing the prayers of the people rising up to the heavens, and acting as a dense spiritual air curtain. You feel the incense smoke, which drifts in slow, purposeful plumes from the open entrance of the sanctuary, reaching out and mingling with the altar smoke. It is a softer, cooler vapor that feels gentle against the rough heat of the sacrifice. This incense acts as the final, purifying layer, actively pushing back the heavy, earthly smells, signifying the proximity of God's dwelling, covering and transforming the necessary realities of atonement into a pleasing aroma for the divine. The contrast is profound. The deep, earthly gravity of the altar smoke is countered by the light, spiritual sweetness of the sanctuary's offering. The density of the incense is such that it seems to hang in the air like a visible haze, particularly near the sanctuary entrance. You breathe deeply, drawing the complex aroma into your lungs. It is a smell that speaks of antiquity, wealth, and profound spiritual power. The priests who tend to this incense are performing one of the most revered duties in the temple, creating the spiritual envelope that maintains the holiness of the entire precinct. This unique air quality confirms that you are standing on the most sacred piece of ground on earth. As the fragrance settles around you, the smoke swirling lazily from the sanctuary entrance, your attention is naturally drawn to the physical structure that houses this most potent of holy scents. The incense, the culmination of the entire temple's purification system, is generated just inside the veil of the next structure, the very building that defines the inner court. It is the sanctuary itself, the magnificent golden house, and its sheer physical presence is a visual echo of the spiritual fragrance it contains. Your gaze locks onto the shimmering facade, the source of this ethereal cloud, ready to observe the dwelling place of the presence. The building structure, though viewed from a distance, holds the mystery of the perpetual flame and the rich aroma awaiting your detailed observation. The entire atmosphere is a continuous offering, sustained by fire, water, and the most precious ancient spices. The soaring, complex fragrance of the incense, acting as a spiritual veil for the entire inner court, naturally directs your attention to its source. The sanctuary, the magnificent building that stands closest to the Holy of Holies. This structure, known in Hebrew as the Heikel, or the Golden House, is the ultimate architectural expression of divine dwelling, a place where earthly craftsmanship meets heavenly design. You stand in the court of the priests and gaze upon this edifice, which is the immediate physical counterpart to the immense fiery altar. The sanctuary's appearance is one of shocking, radiant splendor. It is not merely a stone building. It is a vision of white marble overlaid with shimmering gold. The front of the building, the main entrance portico, is massive and symmetrical, built of vast blocks of pure white stone. This white marble contrasts sharply and perfectly with the stunning gold plating that covers key architectural features. The cornices, the lintels, and most dramatically, the massive doors. The gold is not merely applied, it seems to be an integral part of the structure, catching the sunlight and radiating it back with a fierce, brilliant intensity. The overall effect is that the structure appears to contain light itself. It does not merely reflect the sun, it seems to absorb and generate a luminous golden glow that softens the severity of the white stone. The light appears to emanate from within the gold, a visual confirmation of the intense holiness it contains. Even from your vantage point in the court of Israel, the opulence speaks volumes of the dedication and resources poured into creating a suitable dwelling place for the divine presence. The gold is polished daily, maintained with a dedication that borders on obsession, ensuring that no dust or tarnish dulls its sacred luster. The portico is dominated by a colossal gateway, flanked by thick, decorative columns. The doors of this gateway, often left open during the day, are themselves overlaid with sheets of hammered gold, carved with delicate geometric patterns. Beyond this gateway, a magnificent thick veil hangs, concealing the interior, but enough of the structure is visible to confirm its immense, sacred purpose. The sight is both breathtaking and intimidating, a physical declaration of inaccessibility. Inside this golden house, visible only to the priests as they perform their duties, stand the three golden, consecrated items that define the holy place, the final, working chamber before the ultimate mystery. These items, the golden altar of incense, the table of showbread, and the golden menorah, are the tools of daily connection and maintenance. The altar of incense is where the sweet, complex ketoret is offered, filling the sanctuary and the surrounding air with the purifying aroma you can smell. The table of showbread, overlaid with gold, holds the 12 loaves that represent the 12 tribes of Israel, a constant offering of sustenance and presence. And the menorah, the massive, 7-branched lampstand, provides the perpetual, sacred light that must never be extinguished. The awe of looking at the sanctuary from this distance is profound. You stand close enough to see the detail of the gold work, yet are keenly aware that only the priests, men who have been ritually cleansed and consecrated, may ever cross the threshold. The entire structure functions as a magnificent, silent, golden barrier, a physical representation of the distance between the ordinary world and the immediate presence of God. Your posture, along with that of the men around you, becomes one of absolute stillness and reverence. The golden glow, which seems to contain light itself, is particularly striking in the morning sun. It is a light that feels warm and comforting, yet untouchable, symbolizing the eternal, unceasing nature of the divine. As the smoke of the incense curls lazily from the interior, carrying the promise of the holy service, your mind is drawn to the most constant and critical function within that shimmering structure, the care of the eternal flame. The sanctuary is not empty. It is a place of endless, meticulous labor, focused on maintaining the pure light that is its very essence. And that light is about to be tended in the deepest silence. Since the magnificent golden threshold of the sanctuary is reserved exclusively for the hereditary priesthood, this chapter requires an imaginative transition, taking you beyond the physical barrier and into the quiet solemnity of the holy place itself, allowing you to witness the most critical, solitary duty performed there, the tending of the golden menorah. This is a privilege of sight reserved only for the mind, an observation of an act that ensures the continuous flow of divine light. You pass, mentally, through the great bronze doors, beyond the thick, heavy veil that separates the holy place from the outer court, and enter a world bathed in an ethereal, soft light. The air here is still, dense with the sweet, deep aroma of the unburned and newly burned ketoret, a fragrance so rich it seems to press in on you. The interior space is dominated by the glow of gold. The walls are plated, the ceiling coffered, and the three great items, the incense altar, the table of showbread, and the menorah, shine with a warm, pervasive luminance. Your focus settles entirely on the golden menorah, the massive, seven-branched lampstand, hammered out of a single piece of pure gold. It stands taller than a man, its 7 lamps ready for their daily service. The light from the 6 previously lit lamps casts dancing, warm reflections on every golden surface in the room, filling the holy place with a constant, gentle radiance. This light is not harsh. It is soft, profound, and utterly necessary, for this chamber has no external windows. It is illuminated only by the sacred flame. The priest who approaches the menorah moves with the utmost quietude and dedication. His duty is the Hadavat HaNerat, the meticulous act of tending the lamps. The silence here is absolute, broken only by the soft, rhythmic sounds of his service. He is entirely alone, his presence emphasizing the personal dedication required to keep the flame of faith alive for the entire nation. He begins by tending the lamps that burned the previous night. With utmost care, he takes the small, specialized golden vessel and removes the spent, sooty wick, placing it gently into a golden receptacle. Then, he cleans the lamp cup of any residual char and ash, his movements precise and economical. The soft scrape of the golden metal on metal as he works is the only sound, a gentle, rhythmic punctuation in the silence. Next is the task of preparing the fresh light. He pours the purest, freshly pressed olive oil into the lamp cup. The oil is thick and clear, a clean, pale gold in the lamplight. Then he carefully places a fresh wick, often using specialized golden shears and tongs to trim and position it perfectly. Every action is a ritual of meticulous care. There is no sloppiness or haste in this sacred chamber. The slightest error could cause the lamp to smoke or sputter, an unacceptable interruption to the perpetual light. Finally, he approaches the last unlit lamp. He takes a long, thin rod and draws a flame from the nearest burning lamp. The light is transferred in a single, fluid motion. A soft, gentle hiss of the burning oil is heard as the fresh wick catches, and the 7th flame instantly leaps up, joining its brethren. The golden glow in the chamber intensifies by that small degree, confirming the continuous, unbroken nature of the illumination. The lamp is a symbol of the divine presence and the light of understanding. Its flame must never, under any circumstances, be allowed to die out. The menorah thus burns continuously, day and night, a powerful, solitary act of quiet service. The priest steps back, pausing for a moment to observe his work, his face illuminated by the steady, perfect light of the 7 flames. He then silently backs away, leaving the holy place, having completed the most sacred act of continuous illumination. The warm light from the menorah spills outward, reflecting powerfully off the most significant barrier in the entire temple structure, the ultimate boundary of holiness. The golden light catches the threads of the colossal curtain, emphasizing the mystery that lies beyond. The warm, perpetual light spilling from the golden menorah highlights the ultimate physical and symbolic barrier in the entire temple complex, the magnificent thick veil or parquet. This curtain separates the holy place, where the menorah burns and the priests minister daily, from the Holy of Holies, the innermost sanctuary, the unapproachable, deepest dwelling place of God's presence. Your attention is drawn and held fast by this colossal expanse of fabric. The veil is not a simple cloth. It is a profound work of art, an immense wealth, a testament to the magnitude of the spiritual mystery it conceals. It hangs from the ceiling to the floor, dominating the inner face of the sanctuary. It is woven with astonishing complexity, utilizing the richest and rarest threads available: deep, royal blue, azure, vibrant purple, symbolizing royalty, and brilliant scarlet, symbolizing life and sin, interwoven with the pure, fine linen of the desert tribes. The density of the fabric is incredible. It is so thick and heavy that it is said to have the width of a man's palm, making it impenetrable to light and sound. The most striking detail of the veil is its rich, thick embroidery. Woven into the fabric are the immense symbolic figures of the cherubim, celestial, winged guardians, woven directly into the fabric itself, creating a tapestry that seems alive with silent, watchful sentinels. These figures are rendered in deep, shimmering threads, seemingly floating in the blue and purple expanse of the cloth. The colors are so rich, so deeply dyed, that they seem to hold a light of their own, shifting and moving subtly under the glow of the menorah. The profound experience of observing the veil is the sheer impossibility of seeing what lies beyond. It is an absolute barrier, a tactile confirmation of the human inability to look upon the dwelling place of the infinite. It evokes a deep sense of spiritual mystery, an untouchable silence that stands in stark, absolute contrast to the clamor and fire of the outer courts. You can hear the distant, muffled sounds of the priests working in the holy place, the soft scrape of the golden tongs, the low crackle of the incense. But the veil absorbs and nullifies the noise from the rest of the world. The veil represents the ultimate threshold of God's presence, an end to all movement and all sight. To stand before it is to confront the limits of human access to the divine, emphasizing the sacred separation that protects the world from the consuming holiness within. The vibrant colors and the imposing figures of the cherubim are a visual code, declaring that this space is guarded by powers far greater than any mortal man. The physical size is overwhelming. It is so tall and wide that it must be a physical exertion for the priests to even move it slightly. The very weight of the fabric is a metaphor for the weight of the law and the required distance between the Creator and the created. You can only contemplate the utter silence that must reign on the other side, an emptiness filled only by the Shekinah, the divine presence itself. This deep sense of mystery and absolute exclusion naturally directs your thoughts to the only man in all the world who is permitted to cross this ultimate barrier, the high priest. He is the single human figure who, only once a year, on the Day of Atonement, may pass through the veil. He is the mediator, the representative of the entire nation, and he is the one who steps from the light of the menorah into the absolute darkness of the Holy of Holies. The quiet wonder of the veil and the magnitude of the secret it conceals establishes the singular importance of this man's role, and your attention turns to the figure who holds the keys to this ultimate mystery. The quiet wonder of the veil and the magnitude of the secret it conceals establishes the singular importance of this man's role, and your attention turns to the figure who holds the keys to this ultimate mystery. He is the high priest, the Kohen Gadol, and now, stepping forth from a side chamber, he appears not merely as a man, but as a walking, breathing tapestry of the entire temple's symbolism and the nation's covenant, a culmination of all the holiness you have witnessed. His mere presence is an announcement of spiritual hierarchy and divine connection, a focal point of power and responsibility that commands immediate, unquestioning reverence from all who see him. He is arrayed in his full golden vestments, a sight of incredible brilliance and detail that instantly draws the eye away from the monumental gold of the sanctuary itself. The robes are layers of sacred color and texture, each piece laden with meaning, transforming the man within into a high altar of service. The foundation is the miknesayim, the linen breeches, and the kudanet, the pure white linen tunic, garments that speak of physical cleanliness and purity closest to the body. Over this, the me'il, the robe of the ephod, is worn, a garment woven entirely of deep, perfect cerulean blue wool, the color of the sky and the heavenly domain. It is a seamless garment, symbolizing the continuous, unified, and unbroken nature of the heavens and the cosmic order. The texture of this fine wool is luxurious and heavy, giving his form a stately, powerful silhouette. Along its lower hem, you see the most enchanting and audible detail. Miniature, perfectly formed golden bells, alternating with intricate woolen pomegranates dyed in blue, purple, and scarlet. These bells, numbering 72 in total, are designed to serve a crucial, almost magical purpose. With every solemn, measured step the high priest takes, the golden bells tinkle gently, a soft, ethereal chime that acts as a continuous sonic declaration of his sacred movement and presence. The sound is delicate yet penetrating, a warning to the divine presence that the mortal minister is approaching, and a blessing to the people, confirming that the minister is alive and in service before the ultimate, consuming holiness. The rhythm of these bells is the rhythm of the entire temple's heartbeat, the sound of prayer made audible. Over the blue robe is the ephod, a short, sleeveless garment woven with astonishing artistry from threads of gold, blue, purple, scarlet, and fine, twisted linen. The incorporation of the gold threads gives the fabric a stiffness and a rich metallic shimmer, catching the light and refracting it in complex ways. This is the garment of ultimate responsibility, and it fits around his chest and back like an apron, bound securely by a richly woven matching belt. On the shoulder pieces of the ephod are two large, perfectly polished onyx stones, each mounted securely in a heavy golden setting. Engraved upon these two stones, you can clearly see the names of the 12 tribes of Israel, 6 engraved on one stone and 6 on the other, meticulously inscribed in ancient script. This detail is crucial. He physically carries the weight and the identity of the entire nation upon his shoulders as he performs his duties, bearing their memory and their prayers into the holy place. The smooth, cool surface of the polished onyx holds the weight of history, but the centerpiece, the item that draws and holds your gaze with magnetic force, is the Choshen Mishpat, the breastplate of judgment. It is a square, double-folded piece of the same elaborate, shimmering fabric as the ephod, held tightly against his heart by golden chains and intricately braided cords. This is where the power of symbolism reaches its zenith. Set immovably into the breastplate are 12 specific, perfectly cut precious stones, arrayed in 4 rows of 3, each stone unique in color, mineral composition, and internal fire. Each gem is meticulously engraved with the name of one of the 12 tribes of Israel. You try to absorb the sight of them, shining with unparalleled brilliance. The ruby, the emerald, the diamond, the sapphire, the amethyst, a miniature, glowing cosmos of light, color, and texture shimmering directly on his chest. It is a mosaic of the people, perpetually present and illuminated before God. You feel the immense significance of this texture, the smooth, cool surfaces of the stones, each one hard and precious, represent the diverse, enduring, and valuable nature of the collective people whose burdens and blessings he represents. Upon his head, he wears the mitre, a finely wound linen turban of pure white, indicating purity of thought and action. Capping the front of the mitre is the sitz, the golden plate. This flat, polished piece of gold is engraved with the single, profound Hebrew phrase, Kodesh Ladonai, holy to the Lord. This plate is secured firmly to the turban by blue cords resting visibly on his forehead, a constant, luminous declaration of his dedication and the consecration of his very mind and will to divine service. The golden plate reflects the sun and the sanctuary light in a blazing flash, a spiritual seal upon his duty. As he slowly ascends the ramp toward the altar to conclude a final phase of the afternoon sacrifice, you focus on his face. It is etched with a profound sense of solemn power and responsibility, the look of a man who understands the immense spiritual stakes of his every breath and action. He is not a king or a military leader. His power is entirely spiritual, born of his lineage and his duty to mediate. He is the solitary, indispensable human connection between the people who stand praying outside and the divine, silent presence behind the veil. His shoulders appear to carry the collective spiritual fate of all those gathered for Passover. The sight of this single, solemn man in his magnificent glory, moving with such deliberate reverence, underscores the perfect order and absolute hierarchy of the entire temple system. He moves through the spaces defined by the altar, the laver, and the sanctuary, his tinkling bells marking the exact boundaries of his unique consecrated authority, the supreme example of human dedication in the face of the ultimate divine mystery. His service is the anchor that holds the spiritual ship of the nation steady. The sublime appearance of the high priest, embodying the entire spiritual architecture of the temple, momentarily brings the mind to a point of spiritual focus. Yet, the work of the temple is also intensely physical and public, involving millions of pilgrims, and spiritual order must be maintained by earthly, unwavering discipline. We now step back from the golden core and observe the ground-level enforcers of that discipline, the Levite temple guards, who enforce the sacred order and ritual purity within the vast, swelling precincts, ensuring the integrity of the holiness. Their presence is quiet, efficient, and absolutely indispensable. These men are Levites, members of the same ancient tribe that performs the music and the less glamorous support roles, but their specific duty is one of constant watchfulness and strict enforcement. They are the eyes and ears of the temple management, the custodians of the sacred atmosphere. They wear the simple, unadorned robes of the general Levite service, plain linen, often slightly darker or earthier than the brilliant white of the sacrificing priests, allowing them to blend subtly into the background while remaining constantly visible to those who understand the system. Their authority is derived entirely from the sacred nature of the space and the divine law, and it is absolute, accepted without question by the vast congregation. You can observe them walking the long, wide perimeter of the court of Israel, ensuring no disorder or breach of sacred law occurs. They patrol with a steady, measured pace, never rushing, never shouting, their movements smooth and practiced. They move like shadows or sentinels, but their gaze is sharp, constantly scanning the dense crowds for any sign of inappropriate behavior, ritual impurity, or confusion. They are the living embodiment of the temple's peace, a constant preventative presence. In a crowd so vast and so spiritually charged, one act of panic, aggression, or disorder could have catastrophic consequences. But the very presence and reputation of the guards maintain an atmosphere of respectful, contained anticipation. The guards carry simple, smooth wooden rods or staves, tools of quiet authority, not weapons of war. These are not used to strike, but rather to point, to guide, or to touch a pilgrim gently but firmly on the shoulder to gain attention amidst the noise. Their demeanor is stern, professional, and entirely respectful. They do not engage in arguments or long explanations. Their instructions are clear, concise, and often nonverbal. Their silent communication is vital to managing the immense flow of human traffic and preventing delays, and a gesture from a Levite guard is instantly understood as law, carrying the weight of the entire religious establishment. They are tasked with preventing various types of breaches. They strictly enforce the rule against carrying burdens onto the Temple Mount, ensuring that no commerce or ordinary business pollutes the sacred purpose of the place. They meticulously enforce the spatial segregation, keeping women and men in their appropriate courts, ensuring the priest's inner court remains clear, and checking that no one who has visible markers of illness or impurity steps into an unauthorized area. The guards must possess encyclopedic knowledge of the laws of purity and the boundaries of the complex, making swift, accurate judgments based only on observation and regulation. Their constant vigilance also extends to ensuring the safety of the massive crowds as they press forward to complete their duties. The absolute obedience of the pilgrims to this quiet authority is striking and deeply ingrained. Every person knows the sanctity of the place and the necessity of the rules. A simple shake of the head from a guard is enough to stop a family from approaching a restricted area, or to redirect someone who has strayed too close to a boundary of ritual purity. The guards are the physical manifestation of the boundary between the sacred and the profane, acting as constant, moving walls. They are the unsung servants whose vigilance allows the high priest to minister in glory, and the ordinary priest to perform the sacrifice without interruption. They make the complex mechanism of the temple functional. As the Passover sun begins its slow, measured descent, signaling the nearing end of the afternoon service, the light changes dramatically, bathing the guards in a warm, directional glow that highlights the dust on their simple robes. Their activity subtly shifts. They become more focused on gently, methodically encouraging the flow of pilgrims outward. The final Tamid sacrifice, performed in the afternoon, has concluded, and the massive work of processing the Passover lambs is winding down. The rhythm changes from one of frenetic intake and spiritual intensity to one of gentle release. The temple's sonic boom of music and sacrifice begins to ebb, giving way to the quiet sounds of the crowds packing up their few implements and making their way toward the great gates. The guards exchange quiet, professional nods, confirming that the day's immense ritual workload has been completed successfully and without major disruption. The space is slowly beginning to empty, transitioning from a place of overwhelming public service to a place of hushed, enduring sanctity, overseen by the last few vigilant sentinels. Their silent presence ensures that the sacred day ends as purely as it began. As the intense, sun-drenched day of ritual slowly yields to the evening, the sun begins its final, dramatic descent, casting a deep, warm, spectacular golden light across the entire Temple Mount. This light, so fundamentally different from the harsh, defining white brilliance of midday, transforms the entire complex, bathing it in a soft, ethereal warmth. The massive white stone of the courts and walls takes on a deep, rich apricot hue, and the smooth, polished marble seems to glow from within, holding the day's accumulated heat and sanctity. Crucially, the gold plating of the sanctuary and the high priest's vestments seems to erupt in a final, brilliant, incandescent fire, a last, dazzling display before the coming night. The temple, for a few brief, precious minutes, appears to be made entirely of molten light, a vision of the celestial descended to earth, its beauty almost too much to bear. The day's profound, sacred rituals are now conclusively drawing to a close. The priests have completed the final acts of the afternoon offering. The Levites have quieted their instruments and packed away their harps, and the vast, immense effort of the collective Passover slaughter has finished. The silence that begins to settle over the inner courts is startling after the chaos of sound and motion. It is a peaceful, heavy silence, filled with the collective exhalation of millions of souls who have successfully fulfilled their sacred duty. The very air seems to hold the memory of the day's prayers and the scent of the last rising column of smoke. This chapter focuses on the beginning of the mass exodus from the Temple Mount, which now flows with a slow, contented certainty. The crowds, once surging forward with determined fervor to reach the holy sites, now move with a quiet, collective relaxation. You observe the pilgrims' faces. They are tired, deeply, physically exhausted from the travel, the intense heat, the hours of waiting, and the sheer mental and spiritual energy required for such a profound religious act. But their smiles, though slow and weary, are quiet and deeply satisfied. It is the smile of completion, of obligation met, of a spiritual journey successfully achieved. Their steps are lightened by the immense spiritual satisfaction they carry, a feeling that permeates the very stone under their feet. The pace of the descent down the great wide steps of the Temple Mount is now much slower than the fervent, quickened ascent of the morning. The steps are so wide that entire families can descend side by side, moving slowly and deliberately toward the cooling city streets below. The movement is reflective, almost meditative, with a sense of lingering, farewell reverence. People speak in low, hushed tones, recalling the details of the service, the brilliance of the gold, the rich fragrance of the incense, or the soaring sound of the Levite choir. They carry their bundles, their few remaining supplies, and their spiritual fulfillment, their shoulders feeling lighter for having symbolically cast their sins and burdens upon the sacred fire. They are pilgrims transformed. As you join the slow-moving current of the crowd, your gaze is constantly drawn back over your shoulder for a final, indelible look. You look back at the temple, now standing as a massive, powerful, golden silhouette against the darkening hues of the evening sky. The white stone has dimmed to a cool gray, but the gold of the sanctuary, catching the last horizontal rays of the setting sun, is incandescent, burning brightly against the deepening indigo and purple. It appears detached from the earth, a shimmering, unearthly structure of light and covenant, a crown of fire above the settling city. The smoke from the great altar, now less dense, rises in a steady, thin, final column, carrying the last sweet traces of incense and sacrifice up into the cooling air, a final offering before the night. The sight is simultaneously a reassurance and a final, powerful summons to remember the day's holiness. The feeling that settles over you is one of immense spiritual satisfaction and profound relief. The long, intense day has been one of proximity to the divine, of having stood on the boundary between the mortal and the eternal, and of having participated in the purification and remembrance of the entire nation. It is a deep, profound peace that settles into the soul, effortlessly outweighing the exhaustion in your limbs. The city below is welcoming. Its many small oil lamps beginning to twinkle like fallen stars as the first clear stars appear in the darkening sky above the mount. The journey to the night's simple lodging, a quiet room prepared with unleavened bread and bitter herbs, is a final, slow transition from the communal to the intimate. The triumphant sound of the temple bells and trumpets has faded completely, replaced by the soft, distant murmur of the city preparing for the sacred night. The air is cool, carrying the scent of evening air, dusty stone, and wood smoke from cooking fires. This deliberate, quiet descent prepares the mind for the final, most intimate stage of the Passover observance, moving from the communal awe of the temple to the specific, family-centered ritual of the Seder, leading inevitably to a deep, final rest earned through sacred exertion and spiritual fulfillment. The world contracts from the vastness of the public court to the warmth of the private hearth, ready for stillness. The deliberate, quiet journey back to the lodging now concludes, and you find yourself safely within the simple, sturdy walls of the room, prepared for the Seder meal. This final chapter focuses on the profound silence and stillness that descends after the incredible sonic boom, the overwhelming crowds, and the spiritual intensity of the temple day. The atmosphere here is one of immediate, intimate peace, a stark and comforting contrast to the grand, public drama of the courts and the consuming fire. It is a return to the foundational story, celebrated in the quiet safety of the home, a place of historical memory and continuity. The room is lit by the low, steady, gentle light of a simple oil lamp, its flame small and controlled, casting warm, protective shadows on the plastered walls. This quiet, contained light is comforting, a deliberate counterpoint to the towering, eternal flames of the menorah and the altar you witnessed earlier. The air is warm, the temperature held steady by the slow, dying coals of a small fire in a nearby hearth, which sends out a faint, clean smell of residual wood smoke and comforting warmth. The noise of the city, which was a constant, low murmur outside, is now shut away, leaving a silence that feels luxurious and deeply settling. Every sound, a cup being placed on the table, the soft rustle of linen, is magnified in the profound stillness. The family gathers around a low table or mat, their movements slow and relaxed, shedding the rigid formality required within the temple walls. They sit close, bodies leaning into the shared space, their posture one of deep comfort and shared experience. The exhaustion of the long day, the hours of travel, the standing, the immense spiritual focus, the weight of the collective ritual is deeply felt. A physical weight that now blends perfectly with the profound spiritual peace of having fulfilled the commandment. This physical tiredness is not mere weariness, but rather the satisfying exhaustion of necessary, sacred work completed, of a duty discharged in the most holy place on earth. The Seder meal begins, a meticulous, ancient ritual of remembrance carried out through simple, profound, and deeply sensory actions. The aroma of the food is immediate. The sharp, vinegary scent of the prepared bitter herbs, the rich, fruity smell of the wine, and the dry, earthy smell of the main component. The taste and texture of the unleavened bread, the matzah, is prominent, dry, crisp, and utterly simple, embodying the haste of the ancestors fleeing Egypt before their dough could rise. You feel the rough, porous texture of the flat bread on your tongue and between your fingers, a physical reminder of scarcity and speed. You taste the sharp, intense, unforgettable flavor of the bitter herbs, the maror, a deliberate, momentary sting that brings the mind back to the harshness of slavery and the tears of those who suffered. This combination of dry bread and stinging herbs, mixed with the sweet, sticky fruit of the haroset, symbolizing the mortar of the bricks, is an earthly, grounded, complex reminder of the historical reality that gave rise to the Golden Temple and the Eternal Commandments. The soft voices of the family members take center stage. The father, or the head of the household, begins the ancient liturgy, the Haggadah, the telling of the story of Exodus. The telling is not loud or dramatic, but quiet and warm, suited for the small, intimate setting. It is the story that connects the simple ritual in this quiet room directly back to the moment the lamb's blood was painted on the doorposts in Egypt centuries ago, and forward to the moment the lamb's blood was poured at the base of the great altar just hours ago. The four traditional questions and the answers of the Seder flow back and forth, a gentle, rhythmic call and response that further settles the mind, transforming the history into a living, present memory. The soft clinking of the wine cups marks the moments of blessing and remembrance, each sip a conscious act of freedom. The physical exhaustion of the body and the profound peace of the soul begin to draw the mind down into rest. The low, steady light of the oil lamp begins to soften and blur at the edges of your vision, and the soft voices telling the ancient story become a soothing, rhythmic hum. You have experienced the fire and the gold, the roaring music and the cleansing water, the collective surge of the millions, and the solitary majesty of the high priest. Now, all those immense, grand experiences are distilled down to this final, intimate moment of simple bread, warm light, and soft, familiar voices. The mind, satisfied by the fulfillment of the sacred obligation, finally begins to let go of its need for watchfulness and vigilance. The spiritual peace is complete, allowing the listener's mind to finally settle into a profound, well-earned rest, protected by the stories and the sacred silence of the Passover night. The deep, heavy stillness of the room, held safely between the walls of ritual and love, welcomes a perfect, continuous sleep.